President-elect Donald Trump's threat to slap 25% tariffs on everything Canada exports to the U.S. has put our undefended border under renewed scrutiny. The minister responsible for the border was the only to attend the PM's dinner last week in Mar-a-Lago. Dominic LeBlanc joins me now to discuss what Ottawa is doing to bolster border security. Good morning, Minister. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, good morning, Caryn. Thanks for having me.
1 week ago today, you were sitting at a dinner table across from the president-elect. Were you given any reassurances that if you do X, Y, and Z on the border, that Canada can escape the application of these tariffs?
I wish it was that specific, the conversation, Caryn. It wasn't sort of specific, like if ABC happens, then D won't happen. That wasn't the nature of the conversation. It was a 3-hour social dinner. The Prime Minister and the President spoke about a whole bunch of global issues. It was a chance for the two of them to reconnect. They knew one another some years ago, but it was a cordial, sort of warm, cheerful, cordial dinner. Obviously, the discussion turned to tariffs. It turned to border security. The President and some of his future cabinet secretaries shared with us a real concern they have around the effects of fentanyl in the United States, how it's literally taking lives of many Americans. We share, the government of Canada, the Prime Minister has exactly the same concern as I do in terms of its impact in Canada. So we talked about the shared challenge, for example, of stopping precursor chemicals from China, fentanyl that largely, massively is smuggled up from Mexico. We talked about illegal immigration. So it's obvious that they have a lot of concerns around border security, principally their southern border, but we reassured them that we share entirely their concern around border security, around fentanyl. We agreed to continue the conversation. I described, and the Prime Minister did, additional measures that we were quickly putting in place to reassure Canadians, and obviously in so doing, our American partners, that the border remains safe and secure. So I think it gave us a pathway, hopefully, to get to the position you referred to, but it's not correct to say we left there with sort of a very clear roadmap from the Americans of what it'll take. And in fact, they may have decided to impose tariffs on everybody on the president's first day in office, and our job will be to have them apply for the shortest possible period by showing the Americans what we're doing at the border, but also talking to them about the economic impact of those tariffs on the cost of living in the United States. That was also part of the conversation.
You've spoken over the last week, however, about adding helicopters, drones, additional manpower to certain border crossings. Why weren't these measures implemented sooner? You've had at least a year to prepare for this outcome. Donald Trump made the border a main message of his campaign. And not only that, but illegal migration has increased over the last year versus the year before. So why wasn't action taken sooner?
Action was being taken. For example, between June and September of this year, the number of persons that presented themselves at the U.S. border trying to enter from Canada came down very considerably. My colleague, the Minister of Immigration, changed the rules around visas from Mexico, some visas, tightening up visas, potentially fraudulent visas on persons trying to come from India. The RCMP have added technology. We've strengthened some border crossings. We amended the Safe Third Country Agreement, which allows for, and we said this to President Trump, the Prime Minister was very clear that if they find somebody crossing illegally the border from Canada, they can turn them back to Canada and we'll deal with them. We'll take over. Before they couldn't have turned them back if it was at an irregular crossing. In other words, not at a recognized border crossing in a field on the prairies or in the eastern townships of Quebec. The person could claim refugee status in the United States. They can no longer do that. So that was something we did last year, very significantly.
But in terms of having a more visible posture on our border, I mean, you're still looking to fund it. So action was not taken there. How can you not say the government is not bending to Donald Trump's will?
Well, bending to Donald Trump's will, Caryn, is one way to describe it. Imagine if we said, you know what, Mr. President, we're not interested in showing you that we take this seriously, and good luck with that. You can imagine the questions you'd be asking me in terms of the effect on the Canadian economy and affordability here. So when our largest trading partner and our most important ally says that they have these concerns that we share, which we share completely, we think it's incumbent upon us to show Canadians and Americans that we're prepared to take the increased measures necessary to reassure them that our shared commitment to the integrity of the border remains strong. So we had and were in the process of preparing for surge. 3-4 weeks ago, the discussion was a potential surge of persons from the United States potentially showing up in Canada after his election victory, because some of the things he mentioned in his own campaign around mass deportations. And suddenly now the concern is, oh my God, persons came through Toronto Airport or Montreal Airport and made their way to try and go to the United States. So this is a moving target. The government of Canada has, as any responsible government, a series of plans in place. I get briefed, including yesterday, by the RCMP and CBSA again. And in the coming days, we'll have some increased investments to talk about. And some of this is a visible, sort of more noticeable presence of what we're already doing. So if you have a big black helicopter with RCMP logos on it, taking off and flying over certain sectors of the border, it's a deterrent, sure, but it shows Canadians and Americans that we're taking our responsibility seriously. And to your first point, very much hoping that that will convince the American government, along with their own economic interests, that tariffs is not the way to proceed.
Minister, we're going to have to leave it there. We've run out of time. I really appreciate you joining us this morning. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for the invitation. It's my first time on breakfast television. I appreciate it very much.
And we hope you'll come back. Time now
anytime you invite me. Thank you.
Thank you. Time